So today we're going to be talking about the bladed jig, or the vibrating jig, or the chatterbait, whatever you kids are calling it these days. So we got 4 of these bad boys, and we're just going to bust them open, give them a good once over, see what they look like, see how they're constructed. As usual, I'm going to try and be as objective as possible, except about this one. This one sucks. But we'll get into that later. Then we're going to take them on down, drop them in the water, get some of that underwater footage, maybe a little bit of slow motion to see how these bad boys look in action. But before we get too deep into it, if it's your first time here, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the channel. This channel is all about hunting and fishing. We do all kinds of vlogs, product reviews, unboxings, tips and tricks, and some other stuff. So if you're into that sort of thing and at any point you find yourself enjoying this video, you can hit that subscribe button. You know, it's free to do. Cancel anytime. And if you don't want to miss any upcoming videos, you can ring that little notification bell. And you'll get a notification every time we go live with the next video. So we're going to start off with the Z-Man chatterbait. It's only fair. It was the OG, the original gangster of the bladed jig world. This thing was designed and made by somebody in his old garage, and then it got so popular he couldn't keep up with the demand. So he ended up either selling the rights or the pattern to Z-Man. I don't really know exactly how it went, but now Z-Man makes them. And when I went to purchase this thing to do this video, I didn't realize Z-Man has like a billion gazillion different designs for these things that they're selling, some as high as $17 for one jig. That's outrageous. But if you're not familiar with what a bladed jig or a chatterbait is, it's a kind of a combination of different lures. Basically just a skirted jig that they added this little blade right here on the jig head. And it's basically just a cast and retrieve bait. And when you throw it out and retrieve it, the water catches this blade and makes it chatter. That's why they call it a chatterbait. So what's cool about it is it's got a profile of a jig, it's got the motion of a crankbait, and it's got a little shiny piece of metal like a spinnerbait. So it's like a best of 3 worlds. All right, so taking a closer look at the Z-Man chatterbait, you got just your basic jig head. It's just painted white. This is the sexy shad color. So if we flip this thing over and look underneath the skirt, hey, it's not that kind of skirt. But you can see there underneath the skirt, it has a bait keeper that's kind of molded right there into the jig head. So if we take a look at the blade on this one, it is this hexagon shape blade. It's got a little bin right there that's going to cause it to catch the water and shake as well as dive to a certain depth. And I didn't realize this until I just read the package, but they say you can fine adjust this blade by bending that little bin right there to get it to your desired depth. So I guess the more you bend it one way or the other, the deeper it goes. So we're gonna have to give that a shot next time I have one of these out on the water. And another thing I like about this one is that wire right there on the blade that you hook your line to. It's a pretty beefy wire. It's got a bunch of good twists, so you ain't gotta worry about it coming undone if you hook into one of those hefty guys that have to pull them through the grass. All right, moving on to the next one. This is a Delta Lures bladed jig. This is a company from Laplace, Louisiana. It's not a big name. You probably won't see it in very many stores, but ow, that sucker's sharp. So taking a closer look at this thing, the blade is pretty similar. It's got a similar shape, except on this one, the ends are kind of rounded instead of that hexagon look on the other one. The jig head, both of those are 3/8 ounce. So the jig head's about the same size, pretty much the same shape too. One of the differences is one of the differences is, if you look at how the blade is connected to the jig head, it's got this little split ring that's attached to the eye on the jig head. Whereas if you look at the Z-Man bait, it's connected straight to the eyelet of the jig itself. Under the skirt, we got the same type of bait keeper as the chatterbait. So let's move on to the next one. All right, so next up we have the Googan baits Clickbait. Now this one's built a bit different than the other two. We'll have to wait and see once we get it in the water to see if any of that really makes a difference. If you notice, the blade's got quite a different shape to it. I mean, it's similar, but it looks kind of like, actually looks kind of like a police badge. But it's the same general idea. It's a blade on a jig head. It's got that same little curve right there that I'm sure you could bend that and adjust the depth just like you could the chatterbait. But this one isn't really connected to an eyelet on the jig head itself. It's got this wire that comes up, and they got these little metal beads on there that I'm sure is supposed to add a little bit of extra rattle action. But a good thing about it is when you hook it to that wire, you don't have to worry about that wire bending out or breaking, because that sucker's every bit as thick as that hook is. So if you hook into a big fish, you're probably all right. Another thing you might notice is the paint job on that jig head is a lot more fancy than them other two. This thing's got some eyes with the little Googan Squad logo in it. It's got a little red underneath with a blue metal flake top. So looking underneath the skirt at the bait keepers, we got two on here. We got this little wire one right there, as well as the one that's molded into the jig head, just like the other two. So this one appears to have a whole bunch of bells and whistles on it, but we'll see how those work out once we get them in the water. So last and certainly a little least, we have the Bladed Jig by Mustad. Now, I don't remember what they called it because I got this thing a long time ago. Not sure why I kept it. But at first glance, this thing looks amazing. Check out this jig head. Mean looking little jig head. Really cool looking eyes. Underneath the skirt, you have the two bait keepers. You even get a weed guard on this one. And then you got, of course, your blade, and they have two holes in it. Not sure why the holes are in it. But the problem with this thing lies in how this blade is connected to the jig head. It's got this little nail looking thing sticking out. It's just this little wire post sticking out and a little bead right there on the end. And this is supposed to, you know, it's supposed to rattle and shake just like the other jig heads, but the one time I used this thing out in the water, it just straight up didn't work. But when we get down there, we'll test it out in the water and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so let's head on down to the pool pond, drop these things in the water, see what they look like in action. But before we do, if you're enjoying this video at all, getting some kind of value, either entertainment or education or otherwise, do me a favor and let me know by giving it the old thumbs up. Alright, starting off with the Z-Man chatterbait. You can hear that clicking sound in the water, the little chatter, chatter, chatter. Got a nice little tight wobble with that the blade that it has. See here in slow motion, that blade clicking off of the jig head, making a noise. Little side view for you. I try not to talk too much during these things so you can listen to the clacking and compare the clicking sound between the different ones. You can see that skirt twisting every time it rocks. And I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description below for all of these different baits if you want to check them out in it further. Oh yeah. So next up we got the one from Delta Lures. Now the first thing I noticed when I watched this is I can hear a louder clack sound than the Z-Man one. And it also has a much wider wobble to it. Oh, bass got a little interested in that one. And you can see here when we slow it down just how big a wobble it has. Whoa, whoa, whoa. A little side view for you. And next up is the Googan Clickbait. And again, the first thing I noticed is that one sounds even louder than the last one. It's a different pitch clacking sound too than the other ones. Here we go with some slow-mo. And here with the slow-mo, you can see it has a little tighter wobble than the Delta Lures. Probably closer to what the Z-Man looked like. Maybe somewhere in between. Back to that side view. I love the way these things rock and make those skirts twist back and forth. And you can see this one makes the sound from it hitting the wire and those beads instead of hitting the actual jig head itself. Here we have the Mustad lure. Now the first couple retrieves look okay at first, but then, as you can see when you start it in slow motion, it's kind of more of a erratic movement. So you kind of get stuck to the left and stuck to the right. Not nearly as loud as the other ones either. So there's nothing to stop the blade from one side and make it go to the other. So sometimes it overturns and then gets stuck there without going all the way back to the other side. And then right here you can see it just basically spins around it like a helicopter and doesn't wobble back and forth at all. Right here, it doesn't move at all. It just got hung up right there, and that happened a lot of times when I was out on the water using it. A piece of grass would touch it and it would just lock it up. And there we go again with the spin. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I don't like it. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this one, folks. Hopefully you got some kind of useful information out of it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below which one of these four you like the best. And till next time, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and all that good stuff. And I'll catch you on the next one.